Hello there, thank you for joining us for this latest episode of Europe Now. You find us in Cyprus. This is the third biggest island in the Mediterranean and the third smallest state in the European Union. Cyprus a member since 2004. Well, today Cyprus is recovering from a financial crisis. Just a few weeks ago in February, the President, Anastasiades, won re-election. If you look at the front of his official residence behind me there, you can still see some impact marks from the 1974 siege. Well, the north is still occupied and peace with the north is very much still an issue here in Cyprus. President Anastasiades promising in his election campaign to relaunch the talks that collapsed last year. In this programme, we're going to be looking closer at all of the issues surrounding peace and reconciliation in Cyprus, including precious gas deposits that have been found off the Cypriot coast and an influx of several thousand of new Russian Cypriot residents and citizens. First, though, some history.
A second term for Nikos Anastasiades, but the president's authority only extends over two-thirds of Cyprus's territory, the Greek-speaking southern part. The north is occupied by Turkey, the only country to recognise the region as a state. UN-sponsored reunification talks last year ended in deadlock, the presence of Turkish troops a key issue.
Our priority is to deal with the occupation. On our side, we want a solution that doesn't ignore the Greek Cypriot security concerns, but that also deals with the Turkish Cypriot concerns.
The UN first imposed a buffer zone cutting the island in half in 1964 to calm intercommunal tensions. 10 years later, after a Greek military coup, Turkey invaded to protect the Turkish minority. Today, 40,000 Turkish troops are still there, while in the south there are 2 British bases as well as UN peacekeepers. Since 2003, 5 crossing points have opened, the most visible sign of reconciliation on the island.
So where does the peace process stand in 2018? I've been to ask Chief Negotiator Andreas Mavroyiannis.
We didn't manage to overcome the difficulties concerning security guarantees and presence of troops and issues that refer to questions of property and questions of territorial adjustment. Therefore, the idea was to have a kind of a package, a strategic agreement that would give a decisive push forward, but we didn't manage to have it.
Well, a lot of time has passed. Is there a risk that the current situation of a separated Cyprus could become permanent?
There is a real risk, certainly. At the same time, I believe that we stand a real chance to be together and to have this vision of a reunited country, in a reunited society in the European Union prevail, because the Cyprus society is, whatever we say, much more mature today than 50 years ago.
So then, the question is, what is the government planning to do next? I've come to this British colonial-era building, the old Foreign Ministry, to meet somebody who's well-placed to give me some answers. The outgoing Foreign Minister, Yannis Kazoulidas. Very nice to meet you.
Hello, how do you do?
Thanks for your time. Well, as we know, President Anastasiades has just been re-elected. He promised that he would relaunch the peace talks. When might that happen?
I would say as soon as possible. I mean, in the weeks ahead, hopefully, if the other side is also willing.
Now, the last time there were peace talks, the United Nations described them as being the best and last chance for peace. If your best and last chance is gone, won't you have to come up with something new this time?
No, listen, our plan A remains. We want, through these talks, to reach to a settlement. Qualifying this time or the next time as the last, I don't think it helps any purpose.
Well, I know that President Anastasiades said that one of the biggest obstacles, or the biggest, was Turkey. President Erdogan of Turkey does have a very different relationship with the outside world, with the EU, from when he came to power and was more openly pursuing EU membership, for example. He had looked very keen to resolve the Cyprus issue. Now that that relationship has changed, isn't that perhaps rather unhelpful?
Well, it is, but unless we try, we won't know.
Well, what do you think might convince Turkey?
The only way that Turkey can be convinced is to perceive herself that it's in the interest of Turkey to resolve the problem. And there are many incentives for this purpose, without talking about membership to the EU. Through a settlement, the question of pipelines going through Turkey to Europe is one very strong incentive.
Well, indeed, the gas question is very important currently for Cyprus. Those rather promising reserves in the gas fields off the Cypriot coast. Do you think this does represent an opportunity in terms of reconciling the two parts of the island, getting everyone to work together, or perhaps a complication, something else to argue over?
I believe, of course, in the first. Turkey can create problems, not stop, create problems on the exploitation phase, but they will win nothing. Perhaps we'll lose, but they will win nothing.
Well, the discoveries of gas in those gas fields are continuing on right now. Our reporter Luke Brown has been to find out where things stand at the moment and where they might be heading.
Beneath the sea off the Cypriot coast lies a wealth of untapped gas fields. The hidden hydrocarbons could be a bonanza or a fuel for further conflict. If the gas ever comes online, it could make Cyprus a key energy hub in the eastern Mediterranean. Over the past decade, Cyprus has granted multiple licenses for offshore gas exploration. In February, European oil giants Total and Eni announced a promising find in Block 6, potentially the biggest so far. Those exploratory drills have raised hopes of a windfall, both from energy independence and the revenue from the sales of the gas.
In the long term, the financial benefits of the discoveries should be invested along the lines of the Norwegian model for future generations.
But Cyprus's hopes of becoming a regional player in the energy sector face major obstacles. Its domestic market is too small to make it profitable, and current prices are too low to be viable.
People are saying you need a European price of $10 per MMBTU for it to be viable to export. The prices are inching up. They are about 7 at the moment. But it's a while before they might get there, and the worry is they may never get there because renewables are catching up and acting as competition.
With the island cut in two by a UN buffer zone, Cyprus faces its own unique problems. Turkey and northern Cyprus both have their rival claims to Cyprus's exclusive economic zone. Ankara held naval manoeuvres in the area in February to temporarily halt drilling. For the Cyprus authorities, that Turkish provocation is a direct threat to their sovereignty.
There is absolutely no excuse, none. Is this something that we will tolerate as European or its international community? I think there needs to be some answers there.
Both sides say they want to find a solution, but last year unification talks hosted by the UN failed, in part due to anger from the north about what it calls unilateral gas exploration. For Uzdil Nami, the north's lead negotiator and now in charge of its energy affairs, the gas needs to be shared.
Turkish Cypriots are co-owners of those natural resources, and we have no intention of giving up the rights of those to the Greek Cypriot community.
Cyprus has been divided since 1974. The gas could be a catalyst for peace or inflame the situation.
If they stop, we stop. If they drill, we drill. Let me take this opportunity to make a plea for them to stop their unilateral actions.
We have created a sovereign wealth fund that will be able to manage the revenues from hydrocarbons for future generations of all Cypriots, within, of course, the context of a comprehensive and just solution to the Cyprus problem.
The gas off the Cypriot shore is raising the stakes in the region, but any exploitation of the gas fields is unlikely to be operational until the middle of the next decade.
Well, to just pick up on that topic of gas, if Cyprus is successful in exploiting those gas fields, that could make it a competitor with others in the region, including, in this region, Russia. To come back on that point, Moscow has long been seen as an ally to Cyprus. Some commentators see that relationship changing, however, wondering if Russia could be trying to bloc reunification. The Russian ambassador attended what's known as a rejectionist seminar last year. Do you believe that Russia is trying to intervene?
No, I don't think so, and I have never seen any evidence of Russia trying to prevent the talks from concluding to a solution.
It wouldn't necessarily be in Russia's interest, though, would it?
Russia has never asked to participate in the tenders for acquiring a block in the exclusive economic zone of Cyprus.
And in terms of an issue that directly impacts Cyprus itself, the status that Britain's military bases would have after it's left the European Union, there is free access now across into those bases. Could there be a hard border after Brexit?
No, definitely not. The Cypriots who are working in the bases or living in the bases will have the same status as the citizens outside the bases, and that's what we are negotiating at the moment.
But the European Union is perhaps not very popular here in Cyprus since the 2013 banking crisis particularly.
Can you blame them?
Well, in the latest survey, I saw that only 36% of Cypriots said they had trust in the EU. That makes you the sixth lowest. It has come up, but do you think the EU needs to work on its image in Cyprus?
Yes, I think so, but I think that the more the economy recovers, as it is the case, the more this will be considered as events of the past. They are not Eurosceptics, the Cypriots. They have never been. They are in favor of European integration.
All right, well, thank you so much for talking to us for Europe Now, Mr. Ioannis Kasoulides.
Thank you.
Outgoing Foreign Minister of Cyprus. We were just talking before about Cyprus's relations with Russia. Now, Cypriots and Russians have long said that they feel strong cultural and religious ties. A growing number of Russians are coming to Cyprus to live, to do business here, and many of them are getting residency and citizenship rights. A new political party has just been founded by Russian Cypriots. They're planning to put forward candidates in the next European elections. Luke Brown has been to find out more about who they are and what they plan to do.
Moscow Ararat and FC Tyumen take to the pitch for a friendly football tournament in Paphos. The 16 teams are all from Russia's second and third divisions, part of a training camp during the long Russian winter break. They've been coming here since 2012 for a couple of simple reasons.
Mostly it's the weather, and then there's the hospitality in Cyprus, meaning the people here feel free, and the teams feel there isn't such a need for security like in other countries.
Cyprus is already home to an estimated 60,000 Russians, with 1 million tourists visiting each year. Wealthy Russians have been able to benefit from Cyprus's Golden Passport scheme, which offers citizenship in return for a €2 million investment, a total windfall of around €4 billion for the Cypriot economy. Cyrillic shop signs are so commonplace in the island's second city that it's been nicknamed Limassol Grad. It's here in Limassol that Andrei started a Russian-language newspaper in 2004. With so many newcomers, practical local advice is a mainstay in the paper.
We do a lot of useful stuff, like, for example, how to get a residency permit, or what are the steps so that after a certain amount of years, one could become a citizen of Cyprus, or how to get child benefits. In short, useful things.
One Russian making a new life for himself in Cyprus is Pavel Muntian. Moved his animation studio Toonbox from Moscow to Paphos 4.5 years ago. His cartoons are now translated into more than 30 languages. His favourite character is Mr. Freeman. Its themes of liberty and independence are more easily expressed in Cyprus than in Russia.
Here we can do what we really think and what we want to say. And in Moscow, I'm sure that for today I will be very limited with this show. It could be a problem. It's KGB country. I'm not joking. And Freeman is talking about freedom. And freedom is the thing that no one wants right now. I mean, who are sitting in Kremlin.
Russia's cultural ties to Cyprus run deep, embodied by the Orthodox faith. This Russian-style church 20 kilometers from the capital Nicosia was donated by a Russian businessman and opened last year. But for some, that growing influence across society and the economy isn't entirely benign.
It's not only the government that is reluctant to take any firm position towards Russia or statements by Russian officials, but all parties. This points to the extensive relations of Russian businesses and the extensive influence of Russian capital in businesses and people in Cyprus.
Some in the Russian community want to make their political voice heard. Ivan Mishnevich is the vice president of I, the Citizen, a party launched last year by Russian speakers but aimed at all voters. He says its goals are to reform Cyprus and not bring it in line with Moscow.
We want it to be as much better part of European Union. There is no question of being Cyprus tightly connected to Russian Federation. Of course, there is a such kind of Russophobia of people thinking that Putin is like a god, but he is not a god. He cannot do so much like people think. He is a president of Russian Federation, that's all. And here is not a Russian Federation, here is a European Union.
Back in Limassol, this radio station broadcasts a mix of music and news for an audience of Russian speakers. As their numbers continue to rise, the influence of the community on the political and economic future of Cyprus is likely to do the same.
And here's another reminder of that cultural heritage shared between Russian and Cypriot people. This is the oldest Orthodox church in the old part of Nicosia. And this is where we're going to be saying goodbye for part one of the programme. We're heading now into the zone occupied by Turkish troops since 1974. We'll see you there in part two.